Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, and welcome to our IASP Chapters and Federations Town Hall meeting. I'm Greg Carbonetti, IASP's Associate Director of Publications, and today I have the opportunity to facilitate a conversation between our attendees and Andrew Rice, IASP's President, Mary Cardosa, IASP's President-elect, and Steve Gardner, IASP's Chief Executive Officer. We're very thankful for everyone who could join us today, and want to remind you that today's conversation will be recorded and available for later viewing. When we begin the Q&A portion of today's meeting, there are going to be three ways you can choose to engage with our panel. First, you can submit written questions via Zoom's Q&A functionality. Second, you can choose to utilize Zoom's chat feature. Or third, for those brave enough, you can choose to raise your hand icon, after which I can unmute your microphone and you can go ahead and verbalize your thoughts to the panel. We encourage any and all of your questions, and we hope that you'll utilize this venue to have your voice heard. Without further ado, I'd like to take a moment now to introduce our panelists for today. First, Andrew Rice is Professor of Pain Research at Imperial College London and an honorary consultant in pain medicine at Chelsea and Westminster Hospital in the UK. He's active in both clinical practice and translational research elucidating neuropathic pain. His research covers both laboratory and clinical research spanning animal models through deep profiling of patients with a view to personalized medicine, to clinical trials and evidence synthesis by meta-analysis. Next, we have Mary Cardosa, who's a visiting consultant pain specialist at Siliang Hospital in Sangalore, Malaysia. Mary's done pioneering work in setting up pain services in Malaysia for acute cancer and chronic pain management in Ministry of Health hospitals and primary care settings. And she started the Manang Pain Management Program in Siliang Hospital in 2002, which became a model for group self-management programs across Southeast Asia. She initiated the implementation of pain as the fifth vital sign and the pain-free program in the Ministry of Health. And she's involved in planning and running 5 IASP Southeast Asian pain camps since 2011. And she was also the key person in the design and implementation of the IASP Multidisciplinary Pain Clinic Toolkit project. Lastly, we've got Steve Gardner, excuse me, who spent his career working in and consulting to associations in Washington, D.C. in the U.S., and previously served as an interim executive for several organizations, notably the American Chemistry Council, the National Association of Broadcasts, the American Academy of Physician Assistants, the International Safety Equipment Association, and furthermore, Steve's now been with the IASP in his current capacity since December of 2023. With that, Andrew, Mary, and Steve are going to share a few thoughts with everybody before we open the floor to all of your questions and comments. And once again, thank you all so much for being here today. So without further ado, why don't we throw it to you first, Andrew, to get us started.
Thank you, Greg. Good morning, afternoon, evening to everybody. I want to tell you a little bit about the purpose of this call. This is the second of these. We've held one earlier today to take in different time zones, and I'd like to welcome you to the 2025 Global Year Pain Management, Research and Education in Middle Income Settings, which we launched a couple of days ago. One of the purposes is we want to improve our communication and connection with both chapters and federations and other parts of the IASP family. And I expect you've already noticed an improvement in that since Steve and his staff joined IASP recently, but we want to improve it further. Part of it is these town hall meetings, and we meet different aspects of the IASP family at different town halls. Today is the one for federations and chapter leads. We've already held one for task forces and committees, and the next set will be on open to the whole membership. We want to hear any of your concerns, suggestions, and feedbacks, which we'll, if necessary, we can take back to council for further discussion and consideration. We expect there'll be questions and concerns over Congress registration, particularly the fees, membership dues, member-facing activities like pain camps, grants, and pain schools. And one really important aspect of our relationship with chapters and federations is we're able to develop materials which we can pass on to you for further dissemination amongst the members. And a really key part of that is translation. For example, we've just launched the next global year. Quite a lot of the global year output, such as fact sheets, are translated for us by the relevant chapters. And we're planning to do these fairly regularly. So we'd very much value your feedback on what works and what works less well. But please raise anything that is on your mind. There's nothing that isn't admissible to the discussion. Over to you, Mary.
Thank you, Andrew. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon to everyone, and thank you for attending this town hall. So I just wanted to add something to what Andrew said about the chapters and federations. I think that one of the we have not, as Andrew said in the past, been that good, well, that conscientious about regular communication with chapters and federations in terms of a leadership. So we hope that we actually aim to increase that engagement and communication over the next few months. And we hope that this will be two-way, that you will also get back to us with your concerns and suggestions and so on and so forth. One of the challenges is updating our information on chapters and federations in terms of leadership, especially because that's the information that goes on the website. So we do need updated information from everyone when you have changes in your leadership. So I wanted to also say that IASP is, after celebrating our 50th year last year, we have also begun looking at a new strategic plan. And definitely the chapters and federations will figure into that plan, and we will communicate with you about it in order to get your feedback on what our plans are. So we want to work with you also to develop more content for our educational programs and like webinars and other fact sheets and things like that. And we hope that you will let us know what your needs are. And as Andrew said, help us and help the members in your own countries by doing the translations where possible, where you think is relevant. Um, in addition to that, we want to know what you think IASP should offer your members. And you know that there is this disconnect between the membership of chapters and the membership of IASP, because you have to join each separately. And we do have chapters where the number of members of IASP is very small compared to the number of members of your chapter. So we always encourage chapters to encourage your members to join IASP as well, so that they can get direct communication from IASP and also get the member benefits. So we hope that this, the percentage of IASP members in each chapter can increase, because we want to be able to serve more people in all the different parts of the world. So yeah, with that, I will hand over to Steve.
Thanks, Mary. One of the things that we want to definitely communicate and coordinate with the chapters more in the future is around advocacy. We're going to be doing a substantial amount of planning with the Global Advocacy Working Group in probably a more systematic and proactive way than we have previously. And we want the chapters and federations to be part of that planning. I'll just give you one quick example of that. Last year in the fall, or in October, I know fall is different for different folks, but in October or so, we were approached by an organization asking us to co-sign a letter to the U.S. Congress about a piece of legislation. The piece of legislation was very benign, and in America, it was supported by both parties. And it was really about just gathering more data about pain. It was, the law would have, if it had gone into effect, it would have basically asked that the National Institutes of Health collect more data on pain. So something that everybody in the pain field could easily support and see the value around gathering more data. we talked about it, and we had never really signed on to a piece of legislation to support it before. And so what we decided was, if the local chapter, which was the USASP, agreed and wanted our support, then we would offer it. And that came up with a new policy where if a chapter comes to us and says IASP's support on a particular issue would be valuable to us, the organization will consider that request, and IASP may indeed sign on to a letter or some statement of support that the chapter would like IASP to be supporting. We would never advocate in a region or in a country without being invited by that country or region to help. And even if you did request, we would still have to evaluate it and make sure that it falls in line with IASP values and is agreed to by at a minimum, the executive committee. So that's different. That's not something IASP has done before. I wanted everyone on this call to know about that, and we'll communicate it more thoroughly with the chapters. But it is a little bit different stance for IASP. So I do know that you're all of the chapters and federations are conducting some types of advocacy, and IASP at a minimum can support you when you want that support. That's all I wanted to add today, and I'll throw it over to Greg and open up the floor for questions.
Great. Thank you, Steve and Mary and Andrew, for getting us started today. As I had mentioned during the outset of today's town hall meeting, please feel free to use Zoom's Q&A functionality. You can use Zoom's chat feature here. And for those brave enough, please feel free to raise your hand icon, and we'll be sure to try to get your mic on as quick as we can. I'm dropping a note into the chat here. I suppose to get us warmed up a little bit, Andrew, I'd like to go to you first here, and kind of stay on the topics of chapter relationships. And pretty simply, you alluded to the 2025 global year and how we're always looking for assistance from our chapters to help with local translations and things of that nature. I'm interested if you could speak more in that space, Andrew, in the context of ways that the chapters can collaborate with IASP and vice versa, the ways that perhaps IASP can be used as a resource that perhaps chapters aren't utilizing, things of that nature. I'd like to hear from Mary too, but I thought we could start with you, Andrew.
I mean, it's a two-way relationship, and that's the really important thing. I'm going to quote from you from JFK's gravestone, because one of his most famous speeches was his inauguration speech, which is a bit topical at the moment. And the best known line is, ask not what you can do for what your country can do for you, but what you can do for what you can do for your country. The second line of that is much more important. It says, people of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do together. And I think that the whole ethos, it has got to be one of collaboration. And in several parts of the world, South and Southeast Asia, Europe and South America, Latin America, we have federations to work through as well. But really we need ideas and feedback from chapters as to what's useful for them. We hope we produce relevant materials that is useful for chapters to disseminate in their own context. So an example might be the cannabis guidelines we published a couple of years ago. A highlight of this global year is going to be further disseminating of the multidisciplinary pain toolkit, which Mary pioneered, and we road tested in Vietnam, Myanmar, and Indonesia. So we hope we're producing the right sort of materials. But we certainly need feedback from you as to what other materials will be useful for chapters. We do have a new World Health Organization liaison person, Enrico Wixell from Sweden, who took office only a couple of days ago. He took over from Rolf Detlef Trader, who did a fantastic job, particularly ICD-11, and we'd like to know more about how you can use how you think you can use ICD-11. But I think one thing just to point out, that IASP doesn't advocate in a single country. We don't even advocate in the US, even though we're based in the US. We produce materials for advocacy. And because we don't know what the situation and particular issues are in any one individual country. One thing that some chapters have found exceptionally useful, and I see Fiona Blythe is on the call, is using the global burden of disease data, which are extremely well visualized. They take a bit of getting used to, but I know a lot of chapters have found these very local, very useful documents for advocating within their own country, since they give country-specific data and also comparative data between countries. Fiona's on the call if she wants to chip on more. So it's more about, are we giving you the right sort of materials to advocate for? And I'm sorry for mangling the JFK words, but I got there in the end.
It's okay. As you know, somebody that finds themselves across the pond, we'll give you a pat.
What we've been referring to quite often is that it's a family. It's a family of federations, chapters, SIGs. One thing I would observe from Britain in particular is you referred to the fact that not everybody in a chapter is a member of IASP, but it's also vice versa. So in Britain, we find a lot of scientists a member of IASP, but not of our chapter, and vice versa for clinicians. And it's that overlap of the Venn diagram we want to understand better and try and rationalize the membership pathways a little bit more. And if you have suggestions for that, we'd be great to hear them. I've said too much already. Thank you.
No, I appreciate it, Andrew. And Fiona, hello. It's good to see you, albeit virtually. And we do see your question in the chat, but I wanted to give Mary an opportunity to piggyback on Andrew here, who kind of teed you up with the multidisciplinary toolkit. But Mary, chapter relationships, ways that they can contribute, and perhaps more importantly, ways that we can be a resource and contribute to some of the work that they do. Any thoughts you'd like to share?
Yeah, thanks, Greg. I think that you know, that there is a lot that IASP can offer, especially in terms of educational material, and there's a lot on directly on the website, recordings of lectures and webinars, and I think that one of the things that chapters can do is to see how you can make use of the material that's already there. For example, as I mentioned earlier, by doing translations, or just by alerting your membership to about the material that's available. I just wonder, Steve, and Andrew, whether we can whether chapters that are interested in replaying a webinar or a lecture can do so as one of their educational activities for the members of their chapter, even those who are not IASP members, who cannot get easy access to the education. I think that that's one of the things you can do to make use of material that's already there, instead of, you know, as we always say, reinventing the wheel. Sharing things, but I also think that we do need feedback from chapters about what is it that, as Andrew said, we can do for you, but how we can collaborate more effectively in order to, you know, promote or to advance the agenda of pain and pain advocacy in your country, and also in globally. So that's what I have to add in. There's some more things coming in, so
Absolutely.
I will leave it there.
Thank you so much, Mary. Before we get to Fiona, she's being super patient. Steve, is there anything that you wanted to add to this part of the conversation? I know that we're having internal discussions about how we disseminate some of the material that we help to co-create, but I'll let you speak.
No, I think I'm good. I think I'd rather just jump to Fiona's question, because I've had that one germinating for a little bit.
Fantastic, by all means. So for those that might not have the chat functionality open or aren't watching at the moment and just listening, you know, Fiona Blythe, from one of our friends from Australia, typed, you know, what are some of the events that are being planned for the 2026 World Congress on Pain in Bangkok, and will they be of particular interest to the chapters and federations? So Steve, if you want to take that one first, since you've been patient, I'm sure Mary and Andrew might want to jump in as well.
So to Fiona's question, no, we have not planned specific events for the chapters and federations for Bangkok yet, but we will. And what I want to say is, we have a meeting of the chapters, and I think separate meetings with the federations, but we have a meeting with chapters at Amsterdam, and apparently it happens at every Congress. That was my first Congress, but it wasn't really well attended. And I think it's because we haven't done a good job with those meetings. And it's because we have not had plans in place for how to really work together and what those programs where we can collaborate are. So as a result, we get into these meetings and we sort of, we update them on the chapters on a few of our activities. We ask them if they have any issues they want to raise. We kind of struggle for what we're going to cover in those meetings. And I honestly, I think a lot of chapters don't come to those meetings because they don't think they're of high value. And just to be candid, but that's because we have not organized ourselves proactively and set forward a real course for how we're going to integrate or how we're going to collaborate and work together. That's the work that has to happen first. And once we do that, the meetings and the events at Bangkok will be much easier to outline because we'll have real substantive things to talk about. And that's really kind of the purpose of this call, is to start that dialogue and to start that sort of forward thinking and forward planning. So we are providing more value to the chapters. And when we do get together, there's a lot more value to that collaboration and meeting together in person at Congress.
Thank you, Steve. Andrew, did you want to jump in?
Well, just one thing, particularly to think about the scientific program. Kirsty Bannister is chairing the scientific program. We're currently having a major review of how we do Congress. It's unlikely there'll be major changes before 2026, but there'll be some. That task force has its final meeting tomorrow and it'll report to council. We may change nothing. We got absolutely brilliant feedback from Amsterdam in terms of the number of feedback, some helpful comments, but a lot of things people like what they saw, but we're very conscious that we mainly got feedback from people who did come to Congress and not necessarily the people that didn't. What I would like to emphasize is that the selection process for workshops is rigorous. Generally, the speakers can't be from the same country. And even more rigorous is selecting the plenary speakers. Now, what in chapters and federation is who your superstar speakers are. We don't necessarily know who they are. So I would encourage you to suggest people through that route. Until recently, until we've planned the Amsterdam that became the virtual Amsterdam, not the recent one, it was only scientific program committee members who could propose plenaries. We've expanded that now to council and also previous plenarists and also SIGs can nominate people. So those are your routes to nominate plenary speakers. And it'd be really helpful if people did that.
Thanks, Andrew. Mary, did you want to chime in with some thoughts as it pertains to chapter and federation participation at Congress, or different ways we're ideating changes for Bangkok?
Thanks, Greg. Only to add that one of the other things that perhaps in line with what Andrew has mentioned about the scientific program, federations, for example, may want to consider putting in a submission from the federation for a workshop to discuss issues that are pertinent to to bring up, issues that are pertinent to your region. For example, IASP could come up with something about, what are the particular challenges in that region or FEDELAT or things like that. There's no guarantee, of course, that the workshop proposal will be accepted, but we could consider doing that as a collaboration. Can I or we will go on to the next comment about
Sure.
chapters collaboration.
Yeah, can I
So,
tee that up
so
for everybody, Mary?
yeah,
Just so
yeah,
that everyone's as
sure.
cognizant. So you'll have to forgive my pronunciation. I'll try my best. But Jai Kul Ko chimed in our chat here that many ISP's chapters, especially those in Korea, hold their own academic conferences and have developed pain societies. For the purpose of connection, should we look into strengthening, how we recruit speakers and share them amongst these meetings and co-promote our different academic conferences. So that was the comment. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on that, Mary.
So I think that that's a great way of connecting with people in your region. And I think that the initiative does have to come from the chapter that is organizing their own conference. And like in Southeast Asia, we help each other by attending or speaking, offering speakers or attending each other's congresses and usually, and sometimes we also, pay for our own expenses, but the local hospitality is covered by the local, the chapter that's organizing the conference. So one of the things that we need in order to be able to have more contact between chapters in similar regions is, of course, up-to-date information on the website, because on the IASP website, that's where you would go to look for, where other IASP chapters are and who their leadership is and how to contact them. So we are working hard. We have been working hard over the last few months, and we will continue to do that to make sure that the information on the IASP website about chapter and federation leadership is up to date. And if you find that we have fallen behind in any of the chapter, your chapter, or any other chapter that you are aware of, please do inform us. And Greg is going to give you the emails that you can contact, through which you can contact IASP. So that's what I have to add to that, Greg.
Oh, thank you, Mary. And I'm going to drop those email addresses into the chat momentarily, which actually is a good reminder that please, anybody, feel free to use the chat functionality or the Q&A, or even raise your hand and we can pop your mic on. We do have a question from our Iranian chapter. By all means, Andrew, please.
Could I respond to Jay Chulka? I recently had the pleasure, as you know, of visiting a multiple society meeting in Seoul, and the scientific quality was fantastically high. We are aware that in some countries there are multiple pain societies, Korea, India, Japan, USA, for example. As a normal process, we would tend to operate and communicate through the society that is our national chapter. But it doesn't mean we can't discuss things with other societies. It just means that that's our normal way of communication. Absolutely, we can, and Heather Hodge is on the call, who manages this side at the ISP office. We can promote and advertise chapter meetings and federation meetings through our websites and mailings. The other thing just to say is that actually, I'll come on to the question from Iran, so I'll hold that other point. But we can indeed market and promote appropriate meetings, and you approach Heather for that in the office.
Yeah, so that's really falls to Angelo. Angelo is here on the panel. His camera's off, but Angelo is our head of marketing and membership, and Angelo is the one in charge of the team that would market and help disseminate the information about your chapter meeting or your chapter congress, however you describe it. And we really do want that information. We want to be able to put it on the website, on our calendar of events, and we want to be able to help you market attendance. Generally, though, you have a better list of people to reach out to than we do. If you're in Korea, but maybe you want adjoining countries to consider coming to your meeting, we could do that. We could reach out to the people in the neighboring countries to attend your meeting. But usually the chapters have a better list in their own country than we do, because you tend to have a larger membership than we do in your country. It's much more likely that there are fewer IASP members in your country than your chapter members. But we definitely want that information. We definitely want to help support you with that. It sort of helps us, because the website becomes a better source of information for the entire membership to see what else is going on across the entire suite of chapters. So yeah, we definitely want that. And Angelo and his team would love to have you reach out with information that you want to share, or you want to make sure is on our calendar, or is distributed in our newsletter, or so on. So we definitely want that.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. If it's okay with all of you, I'd like to stretch that a little bit further. I know that we've touched on a few points from Dr. Hashimi's question here, but something that we discussed a little bit this morning, Andrew, and I'll go to you for this, is in Dr. Hashimi's comment, he references, how can we go about, inviting and utilizing international speakers with, IASP's help in the form of webinars, or visiting these various conferences. I know as president, Andrew, you've got a little bit of a travel budget, which is, not massive, but allows you to do a bit of travel to go to some of these meetings. Did you want to talk about that a little bit, or how our members and chapters can go about having some international speakers present?
I mean, absolutely. And certainly all of the councillors and myself are more than happy to give make virtual webinar recordings in this area of financial and environmental concerns. That's more appropriate. I've recently given recorded talks in Nepal and Sri Lanka, for example. We have considerably reduced the amount of travel that the ISP leadership do, but there are a couple of ways we do that. So as Greg said, the president has a travel budget and can visit, and that's essentially meant for visiting chapters and federations. Usually the arrangement is that ISP pay the international travel and the local hosts pay the hotel and any conference registrations. And also, if you're in an area that has a federation, so Latin America, South Asia, or Southeast Asia, the federation liaisons also have a travel budget. It's not huge, and we're conscious of the environmental costs. What we often do is try and combine several visits to different chapters in the same trip. So I recently did one to Seoul and to Korea and Nepal in the same trip, for example. But I would like to emphasize that virtual talks are entirely possible. They're much more environmentally friendly, and we have a lot of resources. We're currently, as in the chat, relaunching Perk, which is our online tool, and we're currently reformatting Pain Research Forum, which is more of a research-driven one, where there are a lot of webinars as well, and any members able to access those. And in fact, I think Pain Research Forum is still free to air for the moment anyway.
Absolutely.
But approach us if you want speakers on particular topics, and usually we can find someone in the ISP leadership who's an expert on that topic. And most of us would be happy to give virtual talks.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Mary, Steve, did you want to add anything to this vein of conversation? Just in the context of, being out internationally or participating in, forums or webinars, albeit virtually, for chapters and federations?
The one thing I would, Mary, did you want to go?
No, go ahead, Steve.
So the one thing that's on my to-do list for this year is to create a speaker's guide directory for IASP. So not just for chapters and federations, although that's really important, but for other outside groups that may want to understand pain, other medical specialties, other research-oriented organizations. I really feel like, since pain cuts across, a lot of these organizations are cobbling together pain conversations and presentations based through their own membership, which is fine. But I would like IASP to be seen more as a global research for pain expertise than we are currently, and come to us for speakers for events. So our speakers guide or directory, I really want to get that started this year. So that if someone is looking for an expert on migraine or cardiovascular or you know, orthopedics or whatever it is, they can come to us and they can find a pain expert that will suit their needs for speaking or what have you. I really think that that's an important resource we need to provide.
And Steve, can I just make an addition to that? We know one of the issues around chapters and federations is that English is the primary language of IASP, and that we translate a lot of things, but probably in that speaker directory we can include second languages of people. So there's many members in IASP who speak Spanish, for example. I speak Swedish as a second language. That's not particularly useful. But you'd be surprised how many second languages. So you can also say, we would like a speaker who may be able to talk in Farsi, for example. And I think, Steve, we should probably put that onto the request for speakers, because I'm always pleasantly surprised to find out how many languages our members actually speak.
That's a great point, Andrew. I speak exactly one. I'd like to speak a lot more. Mary, I know that you and Steve started chatting at the same time. Did you want to add something to this conversation thread?
Not really. I just wanted to emphasize what Andrew had said, that we can help by to find speakers for your conference, but because of restrictions in terms of finance and environmental concerns, as Andrew mentioned, virtual lectures are much more doable than attendance in person. Although, I think we could consider that as well, attendance in person on a limited basis. In the past, I think IASP used to offer visiting professorships, that you could apply for, but we haven't done that for a while.
Appreciate that, Mary. Again, we've got some time left here, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to chime in. We'd love to hear your thoughts. I see Fiona wanted to share one now on the other languages option. Some speakers also have a bit of experience giving talks with simultaneous translations occurring. That's absolutely correct, and it's also been pretty fascinating to see the rise of AI generated captioning in real time across a few languages. I understand that still has a ways to go, but the technology is rapidly progressing. It's a great point, Fiona.
Can I just add to that?
Please,
Greg?
Andrew.
We have seriously considered that for aspects of the World Congress for live translation, but it's very, very, very expensive. And of course, you only get one language. But certainly an option might be to use, and the technology is advancing all the time, that we might give some of the recordings subtitles, for example, that are AI generated, because the cost of those is actually affordable. If we were to do it live for all the aspects of the World Congress, it would more than double the registration fee, one would expect.
Yeah, and that's where we actually need the assistance or the participation of chapters to help us with the language, the translation, the actual translation. Like when we did the training, we did virtual training for the IASP Multidisciplinary Pain Clinic Toolkit. We actually had our Vietnam colleagues provided translators, for us. So we were able to do the simultaneous translation without much cost, because it was a doctor and a member of their society. And so you would know, the local chapters would know the resources that you have available for this kind of thing. So if translation is important for your membership, then I think that you have a big role to play, and we can participate jointly. We can collaborate with that, certainly.
Thank you, Mary. To Still waiting on a few questions, but as we kind of start to segue a bit closer to our conclusion, I did want to ask something from a positive side, or with a positive inflection here, and it's simply maybe Steve, can we start with you on this one? I'll overestimate and say we've got about 11 and a half months left in 2025 right now, and obviously as we move into 2026, we'll be very excited about the World Congress in Bangkok. I have a very vested interest in 2025. It's Paine's 50th anniversary. So by all means, please submit your manuscripts. But with that said, Steve, what's something you're looking forward to in 2025? What's something that you're currently working on, or you're hopeful to accomplish this year, or things that we can get excited about as we move across 2025? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot a bit, but interested to hear anything you'd like to share.
No, I mean, I think this gets to the planning nerd in me, which is basically, a new strategic plan for IASP is critical, because a plan that we talked about earlier, a plan is a communications tool. It tells you, what you need to be working on and when, which is incredibly helpful, right? But the whole purpose of a plan is so that people who aren't as familiar with your work can look at it and see your roadmap for the future. A plan tells you where the organization is headed, what are the things it wants to accomplish, and the distribution of that plan is incredibly important, because that's how people who are not involved in the day-to-day of the organization can see how we're trying to shape the future of the organization. So the planning itself can be a little mundane, but when you finish the plan, it's not done. Like how you explain it to the members, how you get people to on board to support the plan. I'm excited about that, because that creates a tool for greater engagement with the members and really focusing on the things that are of the highest value. So I'm excited about that. I think the other thing I'm excited about, is we haven't talked about it much on this call yet, but I'm exploring what resources we could offer to chapters and federations, right? So could we be able to offer essentially back office support for the chapters who quite honestly struggle with resources and need and would like more support from IASP? Could we be able to offer support in how you manage your members' data and emailing? Could we offer other types of business support for chapters? It would create more energy between IASP and the chapters and federations. It would create more value, and hopefully the members of the chapters would see a need to join IASP. But even if they don't, that's okay. It's I think IASP has to demonstrate more value for the chapters so that we can strengthen those relationships and work more collaboratively in the future. So there's that, and then I think we'll figure out the location for 2028 for the Congress after Bangkok, and I'm excited for that search and to get a city selected, and I'm also a former communications guy. I love the whole process of communicating with members and getting feedback from members. It makes us better as an organization. It creates positive feelings about the organization, and the more proactive we can be, the more we can listen, the more we can explain the future of IASP, the better it is for everyone. And I love that process. I do. And it's one of the things that sort of fires me up about this job. So those are the things I'm looking forward to for 2025.
Yeah, appreciate it, Steve. Mary, let's hear what your thoughts are in this context for the year in front of us.
I like all the things that Steve has mentioned. I think that having a better communication with our chapters and federations and our membership, I think is something that is going to be crucial for moving forward, for IASP to move forward and to be relevant to everyone. So, but we do need two-way communication, as I mentioned earlier. We do need to hear from you, and I hope that we can live up to the expectation, our own expectation of being timely in our responses. So if we don't do that, you can, you know, admonish us or can prod us a little bit more. So you know, in terms of hearing from membership about what we should be doing. I'm also excited about the global year, as you can see in Andrew's background. Andrew, sorry, I'm sure I'm stealing a bit of your thunder. That's Andrew's global year, because it's about, you know, how we work in conditions with limited resources and how we make the best use of the resources that we have in order to advance pain education and pain management in our regions. I think that there's a lot of potential, and we are planning to have not just the fact sheets that are being released now, but also some webinars on the topic. And we hope to together to be able to develop more resources. The other thing that I'm excited about is really how we can organize, as Heather has mentioned in the chat, we are trying to reorganize our educational resources so that they are more available, as well as more well, searchable, you know, so that you know what is there. There's a lot of stuff there, but a lot of it may be hidden. So I think that doing something like that is very important for us to be able to really share resources that we already have. I'm also looking at, we are also looking at sharing resources that have been developed by different chapters or different members through grants that have been given by IASP. IASP has been giving a lot of grants, and one of the ones that I have personally been involved in is the Developing Countries Educational Grant. And members and recipients of grants have developed resources like, you know, little picture books, for example, of how to educate people who may not be so literate. You know, these can actually be shared, or the ideas at least can be shared so that you can develop things like that for your own local needs. So those are the things that I'm excited about, Greg.
Thank you, Mary. Before I throw over to Andrew here for his insight, I just did want to put out a blanket last call for questions right now, although that does not mean that this conversation needs to end. You know, there's a plethora of ways to connect with us, and certainly feel free to email any of us on the panel or anybody in the IASP office. And as Mary put, we're going to be committed to timely responses and communications, as has been a big theme of the town hall today. Andrew, interested to hear what you're thinking about in the context of 2025 and the months ahead.
Yeah, there's a number of things. I'm a researcher with a particular interest in conflict-related injuries, so I'm hoping for a bit more peace in the world than we've currently got. I know that might sound a bit trite, but it's genuine. Mary's already slightly stolen my thunder about the global year, but I'm really excited about the global year. It's about low middle income settings. That includes people living in high income countries where that are disadvantaged populations, but it mainly looks at low and middle income countries where more than 80, I think it's 80 or 85% of the world's population live. And we really want to particularly enhance things like research and advocacy in those countries. We've got a great team led by Sarab Sharma, originally from Nepal and now in Australia, and Margarita Calvo from Chile. And they're starting to produce their documents, but if you can think of anything you'd like us to consider doing, then please write to me or Sarab or Margarita. There's lots of ideas there. The other thing I'm really excited about, we have a couple of presidential task forces going, and one of them is on environmental sustainability. And that is revealing all sorts of exciting things we can do to reduce our impact on the environment. Already, both ISP as an organization and what we do, but more importantly, we'll be producing guidance on what you can do in either your own research or clinical practice. There are one of the major topics that I knew nothing about that proves to be a big issue is pollution of water sources by analgesic drugs, particularly diclofenac in South Asia has caused huge problems, but we're number 3 behind antibiotics and estrogens, and we're going to be producing a lot of guidance. We've got some fantastic experts on the topic advising us, and then there's how much microplastics we generate, particularly in laboratories, pipettes, and that kind of thing. There's great guidance that we're looking at from an organization called My Green Lab, be able to give advice to researchers, obviously trying to promote digital tech or virtual technologies for educational interactions. And there's a number of members, particularly those from an anesthesia background, who have been publishing data on care pathways and reducing the environmental impact of those. Turns out to be fascinating, and there's an awful lot we can do. So I'm excited about the global year, but I'm also excited about the sustainability issues. And I'm just excited to be part of IASP, to be honest.
Thanks, Andrew. So Steve, I'm going to wrap us up soon unless anybody else has anything they'd like to share right now. But remind me, Steve, we're going to be doing an all-member town hall for all of IASP's members, and it's February 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard, correct?
That's correct. Like Andrew said at the beginning, we started with folks with the town halls with people who are very engaged with IASP, people who are in chapters, task forces, or committees. Because you sort of start with the folks who are you're more easily your advocates. We wanted to then go to chapters and federations because you're an important part of IASP, but we have not been as connected and as engaged. And so this is the first part of really stepping up our engagement with the chapters and federations. And then the next step is full membership, and which we have not done before, I don't think. And so it's to the entire membership, all 6,200, 6,300 people, however many that is, will be invited to the next town hall. So I'm excited because we've started this town hall program, and I'm really looking forward to the full membership town hall. I think it'll be hopefully pretty well attended and a lot of good questions. And this is something we want to keep doing. We're not just doing this and done. We're going to do town halls regularly throughout the year with various groups, the whole membership or subsets of membership, depending on what we want to do. And we really want it to be a two-way communication where members can give feedback to us. We'll be doing a membership survey like we did last year, and that's really important to help us understand how to engage with members and what's important to members. But there's nothing quite like that direct interaction that you can get through a setting like this.
Thanks, Steve. We appreciate it. Mary, Andrew, any last words? I think we've covered a lot of ground. Mary, go for it.
Yeah. I just wanted to say that, so we do need you to keep track of some of the initiatives that IASP has, and to pass on this information to your members so that we get as much participation as possible, because the more feedback we get, I think the better we can improve, and the more we can do for our membership. So thank you for attending this town hall meeting, and we hope to have more engagement in the future. And I was telling Greg that possibly one of the things we can do for the all member town hall is to get questions that people are concerned about, for them to give it to us beforehand, so that we know we are prepared, or we can make use of our time most efficiently. So thanks very much to everyone here, and to Greg and everyone else.
Of course. And Andrew, before I let you get some final words, and just wanted to make a quick mention, Karen, thank you for dropping that in the chat. Please reach out. We need all the participation we can get. And furthermore, Marixa, we'll be sure to help you facilitate signing up for the next town hall on February 6th. So again, don't ever hesitate to reach out. Andrew, did you want to share some final words?
Yes, and Karen, to echo that comment, yes, we're very hopeful that and quite a lot of that global year's activities are going to be looking at resources for underrepresented groups in high-income countries as well. I want to say something to federations. So ACAPS is a model federation in Southeast Asia, and also EFIC, in that they've been very helpful to countries in their geographic sphere that have no chapter. And one of the reasons we're quite active in Africa at the moment is we have very few chapters in Africa. And for that reason, we're holding a Pan-African Symposium soon and our inaugural African Pain Camp. I think, Angelo, I'm right, we have 98 chapters at the moment. I really want to get to 100 in 2025. We know that preparations are advanced in Zambia and Vietnam. But for those of you who are in contact with people that have no, in countries that have no chapter, please reach out to them, reach out to us, and we can assist them. If it's a small country, then we reduce, or a low middle income country, we actually reduce it to a member of only 10. Of course, it has to be multidisciplinary ISP members within the country. But we're very keen to get to 100. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Andrew, and you as well, Steve and Mary, for all the insight. I think I'll bring us home right now. So we've come to the conclusion of our IASP chapters and federations town hall meeting. Again, thank you, Andrew, Mary, and Steve, for all of your insight today, as well as everybody in attendance. Thanks for joining us. Furthermore, I'd also like to thank Angelo Baselli and Renee Chassie for their help coordinating today's event. This is the second round of what we hope will be many, many town hall meetings, and we'll be sure to pass information along for future convenings as it becomes available. The next being February 6th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the States, so we hope you'll join us there. Thank you all for your participation. Take care and all the best. Have a good one.